Hey, welcome to the All Shift Podcast. Today's episode is with Jake and Gino. Now, these guys, they have had some great success in a multifamily area, but it's also like there's a tie to their success that has to do with the human, like the humanness behind the scenes, how they think, how they function, how they process, how they took certain steps to get to the level they're at. So whether or not you want to do multifamily or you want to be able to create a cool legacy for your life and create something amazing, you want to listen to this episode. You're going to hear the way their brain ticks, what they think about certain things. You might hear some things that ruffle your feathers a little bit. That's a good thing. I think sometimes we got to be pushed out of our soft spaces to find that solid ground to step and make a move towards the direction of our future lives. So as you step in today's episode, have your mind and your head open, but also bring a little bit of your, we'll call it your armor, to be able to take some blows that honestly may not be the best for you to feel from an emotional standpoint, but the best for your future to hear. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the show, people. We're in here talking about weird breaths. We're here with Jake and Gino. You have a cool conversation. I've actually been on their podcast. They're good guys in a sense of like, one, they're straight shooters. I like very few times people like poke me. And I remember the clip you guys put up of Jake going, that's not it. I was like, oh, okay. Like poke me a little bit, made me have to get dialed in. So I love the candor. I love how you guys flow. Today, you guys are going to dive into the conversation of unpacking how these two became the amazing men they are. And so without further ado, let's do this. I open the conversation with a question, and then I talk way less. Here's the question, and you guys can each individually answer it if you'd like to. We'll go with Jake first. Then we had the little conversation before we got started. Here's the question. I'm walking around town. I sit down at a coffee shop. I don't know who you guys are. You don't know me. For some reason, Jake, you decide to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
Well, first and foremost, I'm never going to turn and start talking to somebody at a coffee shop. So this is a odd day. I used to be more outgoing, but these days I kind of just hide in the woods. But so the reason that you should listen to me is I would think experience. Honestly, I think Gino and myself had a pretty great run in the business space and in the multifamily space doing it. And many people out there coach people in our space and help folks. But the thing that I'm most proud about is that we have a team of over 80 people that work for us. We have our team members, and we've grown a portfolio of, $270 million in multifamily assets. And we actually manage those assets hands-on, if you will. So I think the thing that I'm most proud about is our real world experience and the success that we've had every year for, I don't know how long we've been able to grow at a 20% year over year top line revenue clip, which I think is phenomenal. Yes. And right now, when you're seeing so many people in the multifamily space retreat, we've actually had our most successful year in 2023. So, and we lay that on our framework. We call it buy right, manage right, and finance right. And we think multifamily investing is essentially a three-legged stool. And we've stuck to those principles. We didn't take the cheap bridge debt when everyone else did. And it really worked out for us. We didn't grow as fast the last few years as we could have, or as some other folks did, but we're also in a very prosperous spot because we didn't take the cheap money with the pitfalls at the end when it ballooned. So
interesting.
That's it, man.
Where'd you guys
and
find
I like
each
my
other?
coffee black.
Yeah, so does my wife. Just kidding. She just likes black people. Anyways, let's have some fun. Where did you guys meet though? Because I don't know if I know that. Like, if you guys, because it's usually hard to have a partnership. Just in my experience of individuals that all of a sudden come together just works well. Right? There's always like that kind of wonkiness, but to be together for
and over 10 years too.
Yeah, how? Well, Gino, man, you got to first off, why should we listen to you?
Gino, you're
dive into that part of it.
So the question is, why would you want to listen to me? My answer would be, I'd want to listen to you first. I mean, to be interesting, you need to be interested. So I want to learn about Anthony Trucks. I want to learn about his story and dive into his story because I'm a genuinely curious person. I've accomplished a lot. I've got 6 kids. We homeschool. I've got, 1,800 apartment units. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't interest Anthony Trucks. I want to get to learn the person I'm talking to. I want them to open up. And I think from that conversation, if you want to know anything about me, hey, I'm an open book. But I think that's where most people should lead. And that will serve you well in business. That will serve you well in any relationship. If you're a real estate person and you're trying to raise capital, they don't care about your deals. They want to know that you care about them. They want to know that you're there able to listen to them and solve their problem. So if you don't know anything about the person you're talking to, they don't really care about you. So open up by finding out who the person you're talking to and be genuinely curious. And as far as how we met, Jake and myself, life before Jake for me was I owned the restaurant. I was in the restaurant business for over 20 years, and it was a hard business. And it was great until it wasn't great, and it sucked. And I had a lot of pain. And I met Jake in around 2009 when the pain was real. And I'm like, dude, I want to get into real estate. I want to do multifamily full time. And he was a pharmaceutical rep coming into my restaurant, taking out orders and bringing them to doctors' offices. He was a legal drug dealer, basically. And I was supplying the pizza. And we got together.
Here's my dealer.
And in 2011, we got together. He moved down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and we started buying properties. But to answer your question, how was it so successful? I think it's 3 words. It's values-based. Well, 4 values-based decision-making. We didn't know it at the time, but our values truly aligned. All of a sudden, he wants a family. I've got a family. He's got a ton of integrity. I have a ton of integrity. He's a hard worker. He's focused. I'm the same way. We have a lot of very similar values, core values, long-termism, responsibility, committed, hardworking. All that really aligned really well. And ultimately, to this day, I won't let him down. And I think he feels the same way. He hasn't let me down in over 15 years. And that's really the short answer of how a partnership works. You really need to be aligned, and you really need to be doing stuff that you want to do for your partner that you're not willing to do for yourself.
I like that, man.
Anthony, I want to turn it back on you a little bit as well.
Let's do it.
Because you said partnerships many times don't work. So what have you seen that has failed, and where have folks gone wrong?
What's interesting is I've always been told in the very beginning, someone one time says, hey, whenever you start the thing, plan the exit. So black and white contracts, that kind of stuff. And it's never kept me away from doing partnerships, but I've always been like, when I do it, I want to have no gray area. But here's what I've noticed that works well is if I know my weight to carry and I carry it, and you know what weight you carry and you carry it, and I can also poke you to carry your weight when you're not, and you don't take it personal. You understand what it is and you rock. I learned that through football. I think that football is 11 partnerships at any given moment on a football field. And we learn to have like the ability to tell someone, hey, you need to hear us right now, but like, don't get mad at me that I'm telling you, just take it. And you go, oh, okay, right. So if I can absorb that without taking it personal, we can be better. And I found that the better partnerships that even I have between my wife, my kids, I have business partners in certain things. That's why I start out having conversation like, hey, if we go into this, here's what you can expect from me. And if I don't do that, you can tell me and I'll get back on the horse. But I need to be able to do the same thing for you. If we do that, we'll be good. And yes, you can rock and roll in that same area. But I think for me, that doesn't always work because most humans, separate from work, they're not usually able to put the ego aside and just hear something and go like, all right, they got to fire back and get on. And well, you did this. And like, we're not doing that right now. Like this is your thing. Can we figure this out? Then we'll deal with me. But most people can't do that at all. So the fact that you guys found each other and you've done that for 15 years, I'm sure you've had some heated arguments in 15 years. And so I think that's kind of what I found has been useful and beneficial, but maybe not crazy. But how did you guys?
No, I don't really think so. I want to piggyback off that a little bit.
Okay, please.
I think the reason it's worked is because most people in relationships let you down. And at least from my perspective, Gino, you can comment on this. I think we just handle our shit. And we don't get lost in the weeds with like the weird ego-y bullshit. We just kind of show up and do it. And I expect it from him. He expects it from me. And it just gets done. And so I think when what he was talking about the values aligning, and every deal we do, it's a new operating agreement, but they're all basically the same thing, over and over again, but it's fresh slate. But yeah, Gino, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
The only thing I would say, Anthony, is when I'm doing something, I always have his kids in my mind. Because whatever I'm trying to accomplish, whatever money I'm making for him and his family. And I really did grow up in a hardworking environment. I've been working since I'm 8 years old. I'm not just saying that to say that, but I literally have had a job since I'm 8 years old. I've been in my own business for the last 20-something years. So I've swallowed a lot of crap. And I'm not going to be here having someone younger than me telling me that I need to step it up. If that's you, then go work for somebody because you're not cut out to be somebody's partner. Right? That's the reality. That's the hard medicine. It's really hard. It can be lonely sometimes, and I got to have him telling me that I got to step up my game. What kind of man am I? I'm not a man. I'm a boy. I mean, be a man. If you got to be a man, that's how you partner with somebody. That's the reality. If you can't do that, if you have an expectation and you didn't show up and you didn't get the job done, you're a boy. You're not a man. Fess up to it. That's your ego. Now, we make mistakes. We fall off the wagon, but that's the reality. That's the way I look at it. I've never had to say to Jake, hey, bro, can you make this thing? He had COVID during one of our events. The guy showed up. He was on stage. He didn't make those excuses. So how? Dude,
that's the first time we're letting that out of the bag. But yeah, well, I'm dying of sweats. I'm sweating the bed through the sheets. And we had 1,000 people at an event. And this was when you couldn't really, do things having COVID. And so we kept this under wraps for a few years. But dude, we rocked it though. But it's like, look. But here's the thing, though. It's like that's the kind of, I think, way that we were raised. Like, yes, you get sick. Okay, you can get sick. But are you really sick? Are you really that sick? Like, and so it's like everyone's got different values and stuff. But it's like, dude, if I'm sick, I'm still working that day. I'm not fucking dying. Like, what is this shit? Like, I think a lot of people are pretty weak. And I have a partner that, probably feels the same way about this. And we don't treat our team members like this because I know and on a large scale for society, most people can't handle that. But I mean, for the two of us, that's what it is.
Anthony, my wife has put me through she's put me through this kind of, I don't want to say lesson or training, but she's become a high performance coach. And she said, Gino, pick 3 words that you like to describe yourself. So I sat there for a second, and the 3 words that I picked, and I challenge anybody listening to this, do this for yourself. The 3 words were responsible, committed, and hardworking. So if that's what I truly believe that I am, how can I make an excuse not to be a hard worker? How can I make an excuse not to be committed? How can I make an excuse not to be responsible? If I'm doing that, I'm going against what my true core values, my true beliefs are. What kind of day am I going to have? I mean, this past weekend for Thanksgiving, I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. I wasn't committed. I wasn't hardworking. It was like dreadful for me. Now that I'm on this and I'm working during the week, I love it. So I know what gets me going. So understand what those 3 words are for you and try to live by those 3 words and maybe find a partner who has similar words that you're resonating with.
I like it, man. It's funny is I have an accountability guy. Again, Mark Drager is a good buddy. And our whole thing is we have this accountability thing. Every 2 weeks, we hop on a phone call, 12 to 1 o'clock, and we just chat. Hey, what'd you do last time? What are you going to do next? And the whole thing is built around, I will not show up to this call having not completed that thing. There's an excuse because you have an excuse or you get the outcome, but you can't have both, right? You get there like, hey, if you have 1,000 people here, I got to get it done. And I think that for me ties to the football too. Like I had a parasite. We played Oklahoma and I went to Oklahoma. I had a parasite the entire week from Oklahoma to the next game. I was able to put down 2 bottles of water and a granola bar. Didn't miss practice, didn't miss the game. I still got things done because like you said, you're not dying. I might've been a little bit, but you function, but it actually hardens you for what you want later on, I think too.
Mm-hmm. What was Jordan's most famous game?
The flu game. That's what everybody knows about. You got it there, got it done.
The flu game. Dude, everyone knows Jordan's most famous game was the flu game because he exemplifies greatness and he's not going to let the fucking flu slow him down. He's going to go out there and drop 70 or whatever the hell he did. So
he's actually worse, brother. It was food poisoning. I don't know if you saw the documentary.
Oh, it was food poisoning.
They actually said that
dude, that's the pizza worst.
He got pizza. Right. That's what I'm saying. So the flu is one thing, but food poisoning, eating a bad pizza and getting sick off of that, try to play with that.
Dude, your stomach is going like this.
If you watch a documentary, Pippen's actually he's actually being held back to the sideline. He can't even walk to the sideline. It's amazing. Unbelievable, guys.
But you're right, though. I think the world is very soft, man, and it is. There's a definitive space between what I speak for a living. There's things I can and can't say, but like when I'm at my house, my daughter just yesterday. I promise you, we're doing this. We do hills, my wife and I and the kids, and so yesterday was Sunday. We missed Saturday. Had to get it in. It's 12 straight. You got to do 60 meters, 60 meters, 90 meters, and you do 12 of those, 3-minute break in between to get full recovery. But you're still gassed. My daughter's out there kind of doing her thing and she's not going through, just joking around. I look at her, I go, I don't know what you're doing, but like if we're out here, we got to get everything we got to give out here because you can't just all of a sudden lock in the day of. You lock in now, so it's easier the day of your race. And we're months out, but my wife's like, it's fine. I was like, it's not fine. Like I'm out here with her. She's out here. We're going to get the most out of this. And so and then last night she's joking my wife again. And she goes, my wife's saying something, well, I got through the workout. And I look at my wife, I start nodding. And she goes, what? And I go, I never want to, I literally said, I never want to have my kids say something that's like bad. I got through it. Like, well, it's not real practice. No, it's real practice. Are you practicing? Yes, you are. So my wife thinks I'm hard, but I go, no, this little girl said she wants something. So in the middle of you doing the thing to prepare for it, you're sitting there going like, I got through it. Like, that's not the way you approach something. And so, yes, I got to move that needle, because society has had my daughter have the language of, I got through it. I'm just joking around, like, unless you take it serious and literally lean in, like, it's not going to get the outcome you desire. And most people aren't prepared to do that. Unfortunately, they'll find the easy way or good excuse to be able to diminish.
And it's like, yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds, but are you really going to do the things that get you to lose the 10 pounds? You're going to put your toe in a little bit and then get frustrated. It doesn't work. It does work, but you didn't do it.
Else. Exactly. You blame something else. So you guys have stepped in. The mentality is amazing. It's not like you guys should probably go out there and I don't know, sell like, boots and snail race kits if you wanted to and be successful. What got you guys into multifamily? Because if you were doing pharmaceutical sales and you were doing pizza, where did the multifamily pop into the picture?
My mom, as an immigrant, owned a couple of buildings, and I saw the power of real estate, and I wanted something passive. I wanted to do something while I'm doing the restaurant. I wanted to make a little bit of extra income, that side hustle. Everyone calls it a side hustle. And I just wanted to start with a couple small buildings with Jake. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to fix and flip. I didn't want to buy single family homes, because I'm like, listen, multifamily is scalable. If we buy a 10 unit, we can buy a 30 unit, then a 50 unit. So that for me is why multifamily. And I didn't know the tax benefits. I didn't know the principal pay down. I didn't know the forced appreciation. I didn't know all these other benefits with multifamily. I just saw cash flow. I wanted to get paid every single month owning a business. I didn't know at the time that if you look at real estate, and you should, as an actual asset investment, but also as a mini business. Once you do that, everything changes about that real estate, about that investment. And it's scalable. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not buying a 10-unit apartment building. I'm buying a business that has 10 units that's throwing off cash flow for me every month. If you can think of that as a future stream of revenue, everything changes in real estate. Your mindset changes, and you're like, okay, I got to go in, full tilt on this asset. Gotcha.
And then, I mean, as you look at that, because that's interesting you say that. I don't know why in the last like 3 years I've had these like deep conversations. I feel like my wife and I need to go into those. We're doing more like single family homes. We have different stuff in different states. We do well with it. Like we could retire if we wanted to. But I've had this discussion with her, and she's like, I don't know if I want to dive into that just yet. But I had a good conversation with a buddy who's like, actually get better loans from that, because like to get the level you need, you don't have to have full occupancy. But with a single family, you need one person, and if you lose the one, you're kind of screwed, right? So little stuff kind of dives in. Was there any apprehension? Like, because obviously you want to do that. Was there a thought that could have slowed you down? Is there something that most people battle when they look at that and go, I don't know if I want to, that you guys like jumped over pretty quickly? What is usually the barring factor or the mental barring factor for most people stepping into that realm?
That is the factor. No, that is the factor. It's the mindset, because people think it's unattainable for them, and it's just for people that own buildings. Well, you didn't have credit when you got your first car, but you figured that out. So it's the same kind of thing. And so, even taking it back a little bit for myself, I was driving around going to all these different doctor's offices, and I was just listening to different audiobooks. Came across Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like a lot of people do, Richest Man in Babylon. So I started shaping my mindset. And then I had Gino in my life, and I had this doctor who, when all the other medical groups had bought up all the little private practices in our town, he was the only one left that didn't join a group because he had his autonomy. He was financially free from his real estate, so he did his volunteer work. He worked for the fire department. He worked for the ambulance, and he kept his private practice because he wanted to be independent and keep his autonomy. And he said, Jake, and this is basic house hacking 101. He said, buy a duplex, live in half, rent the other half out. That's where you start. So he was a big influence on my life. I had Gino saying I want to get into real estate, and there was a final component where there was this thing called the Sunshine Act and healthcare reform. And when I first got into the pharmaceutical game, I really liked it. I was an athlete. It was a core value fit. It was a lot of guys out there trying to sell. And then it shifted to this quasi-government job where I was like a newscaster and I had to read back a script. So it went from a great culture fit to I was basically going to get fired because I just did not fit into that organization at all. So I was like, I got to find something, because eventually I'm going to say something stupid and get fired because it's not a good fit any longer. So I was looking for that landing spot. No, man, I'm telling you, like we would go to these conferences and I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. I was like, what are you doing? It was terrible. So I had influences from Gino, from Dr. Neshi, from the different audiobooks, but I had no formal real estate training or background. And that's where Gino came in and really was my mentor there. I was boots on the ground at the time. We came together and we made it happen.
Anthony, it's education times action, or it's implementation. I think nowadays everyone's confused with this knowledge is power. Knowledge isn't power unless you implement it. I mean, that's what we've been able to do with our students. Our students have closed over 75,000 units. You have buy right, you have manage right, and you have finance right. That's our framework. Before I met Jake, I didn't have that framework. I was all over the place. I was in mobile home parks. I was in strip centers. I had a couple of duplexes. Once I figured out the framework, and then all of a sudden the commitment and the responsibility, let me pick one vehicle. I chose multifamily. I stuck with it. I saw the power. It did take us 18 months to find the first deal. It didn't happen overnight. But then after 18 months, things started to accelerate. You start figuring things out. Once you start putting your toe in the water and that toe stays in the water, all of a sudden after our first deal, 3 months got our next deal. Then 6 months, we got our third deal. And then you start figuring things out. Don't let the daunting task of a venture hold you back. Multifamily is like any other investment, whether you're investing in single family, it's just a few different things, and it seems like a lot bigger. And behaviors are belief driven. If you believe you can't get into it because it's daunting and commercial, then you're not going to do it. But I'm telling you, if a pizza guy and a drug rep can figure out how to buy their first deal, focus on that first deal. Don't worry about 150 units later. Focus on the 7 unit that you got right now, right in front of you. Eat that one, work on that one, and constant practice, learning, implementing, being around other people, raising your standards. You guys were talking about standards before. If your standards are, I'm only going to hang out with people in the single family space, you're never going to get into the multifamily space because people are talking about, fix and flips is down here. Get into bigger rooms, get into smarter rooms, get into rooms where people are doing multifamily. Don't be intimidated by starting all over. It'll be so worth it for you.
But Gino, you hit the nail on the head. It's mindset. It's the people's mindset that they see this. It's this big commercial real estate space, and I can understand a home. I think that's part of the reason why so many people start restaurants. Like I cook at home, I'm good. I can go out and I can do a restaurant small. Like they can almost attain it, and they see like a single family home. Like Anthony's talking. Well, I own a home. I can go out and buy another one and rent it out. It's attainable because they've seen it and they've done it.
Yeah.
The key with multifamily investing for people that are struggling with the mindset is to start small, but a little bigger than they're in right now. And we started with a 25 unit. So it was me, Gino, and his brother, right? So if you split that up, it's a little over 8 units a person. So essentially we went out and bought an 8-plex, right? Maybe you think, well, I own a single family. Maybe I can go buy a 4-plex. Well, start there, okay? Find a good deal that's going to cash flow, blow out the 1% rule, post reno if you need to, whatever the case may be. And then you're going to realize, wow, this is really not much different. It actually gets easier the bigger I go because I can start hiring more people. And then when you go from 8, maybe you'll go to 20 or maybe you'll go to 15. And then once you get to 15, you're going to be like, this is kind of a weird size. I bet 30 would be easier, which it is. And that's when you start scaling up like that and you start growing. You may have to bring people with you because you don't have the cash, but that's okay. It works out pretty well.
There's a lot of nuances to it. Yeah, there's a book I have been meaning to read. Someone sent it to me. It's called 10X is Better Than 2X, something like that by Dan Kennedy. But like conception, I think it's here and the kind of the same thing, which is like the bigger you go, obviously the easier it is because you can not do it alone. I think TD Jakes, one time he says, if you have a dream that can be done by just you, it doesn't need more people. The dream's not big enough. And so I think there is something to having that kind of challenge. And I'm also hearing the mindset thing. And maybe you guys, because you're the athlete in you, there's a part of me that likes to have that tension. Like I enjoy being under the gun a little bit. I feel like I'm more alive when I'm doing some at a faster pace. And I feel like God puts things in my head. So like I'm sitting here going like, we need to do this. My wife and I have been talking about little stuff. And I need to get her over the hump to go do it. Because I've got probably 5 or 6 people legitimately I could call right now, separate from you guys that do this stuff. And they're like, you should get into it. I'm like, we're thinking about it. But I didn't pull a trigger on it. But it's not about me today, obviously. But I do know there's a mindset to that. And I love you guys.
Why do you want to do it though?
Well, I think for me, the thing is I want to not do this at some point. Not because I don't love doing this, but I find that at a certain level, I want to be able to genuinely just live the life and enjoy the fruits of the labors I've created. My wife, she has a great business. She gets to run track. I want to travel. I want to go see my kids, my grandkids. I want to do this because I love to do it. The podcast and the speaking. I want to do maybe 10 a year. And then I want to just go travel and help and volunteer and be philanthropic. But I can't do that if I don't have something that's actually producing a revenue, like a cash flow. So like, for example, I want a car, but I don't want to buy the car. I want to go buy a house that pays for the car. Like I'm keying, like I want to use my.
That's the key. You need assets to pay for the events. Now you're thinking, yes.
That's all I want to do. And so for me, I go, well, if I want to have all those things later, I need to make sure I have assets that are providing that. So I always have that principle of the money sitting there. And then from there, I can have the fun into the toys. So that's kind of where my brain goes for the future of it all. But the mindset of it is different because most people haven't seen that. Like most people haven't. like most people haven't made the money to be able to see what it looks like at that level. How'd you guys step the mind in for yourselves to do that? Or was it always somewhere you guys like, I'm locked in, I got this? Or did you have any mental battles yourself at a climb?
So I read a book, Mindset, actually, by Carol Dweck, and I think everybody should read the book. It's a simple book, but it talks about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And every area of your life, you can have different mindsets. You can have a growth mindset like you for football, but then when it comes to other things, you have a fixed mindset. And it's really important to read it, especially if you have kids, because you could be telling your kids, you're great at it, you're doing great, don't worry about it, don't practice. The kids got A's in school. All of a sudden they go to college, things get tough, and they may quit because they have a fixed mindset, because they're like, you know what? There's competition now. I don't want to seem stupid or appear to be stupid. Look, you'd mentioned Jordan. He is the epitome of the growth mindset. He's constantly learning. He's constantly working. He doesn't care if he looks dumb. He's going to try to figure it out. Whereas the fixed mindset is more like John McEnroe, where you're out there, it's everyone else's fault. He was a superior athlete, but was it the sawdust? Was it the noise of the crowd? Was he sick one day? That's really, you're talking about mindset, fix, and growth. And I'm not here to tell you, you should adopt one or the other. What I really am here to tell you is look at your life and see where you're struggling. And when I bring it back to money, it really comes down to the psychology of money. And this is what it comes down to, the relationship that everyone has with money. Do you have a fixed mindset with money? Do you have an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset? Really do that deep dive within yourself, because the real estate, the multifamily is not holding you back. Your view of it may be holding you back. Are you afraid that your mom is putting pressure on you that you shouldn't be doing these deals? I had that pressure. I had, Gino, we need to stay small. Don't take any risks. We're not Steve Jobs. Like, you keep hearing that over and over, it holds you back. So once you dive into these books, like a T. Harv Eker book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and you read The Psychology of Money, and you read Mindset, you start thinking to yourself, it comes down to, how are you assessing it? How is your relationship to all this stuff? And for me, when I read Mindset, I was like, holy crap, I've got a growth mindset in these areas, and I've got a fixed mindset in these areas. And I need to be careful of how I speak to my kids, because I don't want them adopting fixed mindset in certain areas of their lives.
You've talked a couple of things too that stand out to me is, what's your kids or your friends or your family. Did you guys have people, like, I'm obviously hearing one, did you guys have people that were obviously anti? And then how did you guys find we'll call it the community of minds that progressed you up? Because I'm assuming at some point in time, you needed to have minds that made you feel uncomfortable, like the rooms you spoke about that get you into where you raise a little bit. What do those rooms look like? And have you had to replace some of the people around your lives?
Yeah, I mean, I'll hop in right now because Gino was just going off. But I know for a fact he brought up his mom. And the funny thing was, I don't know how many units you had before you told your mom, if it was 300 units, 200 units, before his mom. And they're in business together. Okay, so they own the restaurant together. Yeah, so I think it would be unfair not to bring that up. But for myself, is I kind of just, I kept it quiet because I was working at the pharmaceutical company while I was starting my investing career. So I didn't want any sort of weird crossover or hard feelings there. So I didn't really tell anyone. The only person that really knew was, like, my wife knew, obviously, that I was investing in deals. My family didn't. I didn't really share it with them a whole lot. I was like, yeah, I bought an apartment complex. Like, oh, great, Jake, that's cool, or whatever. And then, at one point I got a $10,000 loan for my grandparents. It was on our third deal. But besides that, there wasn't really much exposure out there. And then all of a sudden we're sitting at like 800 units and people are like, what you guys own 800 apartments? We're like, yeah. And so we wrote a book, and then we started a podcast. So it went from like, we're just kind of these closet multifamily owners to we start sharing it. It's, at a larger scale with people. So there was, for me, I was kind of just like this closet case with it, and didn't really share it with people. I don't know, maybe I didn't want the rejection, or didn't think it was cool enough yet till we got to a certain point, but I just kept it kind of, close to the rest.
Now, Anthony, you asked how you progress. I think the important thing is, when you're thinking about progressing, I think you have to start at one point in your life to identify as that person you're trying to progress to. Because my identity was the pizza guy. I had a restaurant for 20 years. People saw me as the pizza guy, and my mom probably saw me as the pizza guy. And I had to take it upon myself to work my ass off. I became obsessed for a few years there. I mean, I was working during lunch. I was working at home, in the morning, at nighttime. And I had to adopt that mindset of a multifamily investor. And what do multifamily investors do? They call brokers. They get on podcasts. They do property tours. They speak to investors. These are things that I had to do to be able to identify as a multifamily investor. And that's how I shed that. And that's how I started growing. And then weekly we were doing podcasts, and all of a sudden I'm talking to a Robert Kiyosaki. I'm talking to people in the space who are really big. So that's giving me more confidence. And then obviously being on calls daily with Jake, I mean, talking to him 3-4 times a day, having that accountability partner helped me out as well. Because when I'm in the kitchen working with people in the kitchen, it's really hard to think of myself as that investor. But then when I'm doing deals with Jake, that's my other side of the Jekyll and Hyde story, where at one point you have to say, I'm all in. This is what I need to be. I need to identify as that. And it really helped me out.
Yeah, but I think anything in life is going to be worthwhile. You got to give it all, because there's somebody else giving their all, and you can't get what they get if you don't do what they do, which is part of that identity thing you're talking to. What are some of the unexpected positives you guys experience? Like, there had to have been some you happen across, like, holy crap, I didn't realize this was piece of it. Was it, I mean, maybe it's freedom, control. What are some of the nuances? Because there's always that part that people see the fear of it, but there's always those things they don't realize are also amazing that are kind of hidden behind the veil.
It's so endless for me, because the thing I started to realize, and that's why I think it forced me out of my job even quicker, was how much I craved autonomy and not being told what to do. I can't even put a price tag or a metric on the value of that for me. And that became so apparent throughout the years. The creativity that was being stifled in the corporate box, really, came to the surface, and we were able to create all these, fun and amazing things. There was no limit on really, okay, 9 to 5, I'm going to go and work 9 to 5. Work a lot longer than that most days, and I still do, but it's because I enjoy it and it gives me fulfillment. I think the scariest thing to me sometimes is when people talk about retirement. It's like, what the hell are you going to do to fill, all that time? Like, I think you can travel and do a lot of fun stuff, but I still want to be active and engaged in the business, because it scratches that sports itch for me I'm just a very competitive person. And the coolest thing about business is that you can compete and you get rewarded with money, which provides all these different opportunities. That's what money does, right? It creates different opportunities and choices in your life. So, that autonomy piece was huge. I think the growth within the business was amazing, because Gino understood it better than I did getting into it. But then when you start talking about cost segregation studies, tax benefits, the different things you can do with finances in terms of, refis, and, we call it refi and roll. People call it BRRRR, whatever the hell it is. I didn't know about all this getting into it, but we learned through doing. And so just the vehicle itself, it creates such a scalable model where here's a little business here, you go buy another one, and then it starts to stack, and that snowball of cash flow is really amazing over time. So I think it was just, thanks, big shout out to Gino here for helping and assist me get into the entrepreneurial space with him, because then the chains came off, and we started sprinting together, and it was pretty amazing, and it still is. I don't know. I guess I'm holding back a little bit because we're having like this, Anthony, you got the late night DJ voice. I was picking on you about it last time. I'm usually like, let's go, but I'm pulling back a little bit, trying to have a gentleman conversation. But I hope that my passion is coming through now, because you guys are good, man.
I get it. I think there's a different level of different kind of podcast. I kind of chat and talk, but I definitely get the energy that's necessary, because
I'm trying to be cool, man. Like, we're having the conversation, the Joe Rogan thing. I get it. Yeah, man.
There you go.
Just do it professional.
I guess that's great. I guess I'd get all that out of my system when I'm on a stage, so I don't do as much in my house in my podcast. But I do have a dark work podcast coming that'll be a definite different energy, and so maybe we'll have you come back on that and be in person, and you could yell a little bit.
Start screaming.
What are your thoughts? Do you know what's something unique that came from it that you're like, I didn't know this was even part of it? Is it the same autonomy and the freedom?
For me, it was the education company, and back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I was listening to T. Harv Eker, I was listening to Zig Ziglar, Jim Rome, all Kiyosaki. And then all of a sudden I'm interviewing these people. And that to me was just amazing, from having them as mentors to having them on my show and having them in my circle now. That's pretty freaking amazing to think about it. Like, I learned so much from them, and now they're in my sphere of influence. Interviewing Ken McElroy, interviewing Jim, the guy who started the podcast with Jim Rome. It was just, I was mind blown by that. I'm like, I can't believe it, because I'm leaning on these people. I'm learning from them. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm actually sharing ideas with them, and they're part of my inner circle. That to me was amazing. And also finding something that I loved. I always wanted my children to see that, it doesn't have to always be hard work. It can be fun work. It can be enjoyable work, because the restaurant business is really challenging. it's a lot. It can be really hard work, and it's not always rewarding. It's you do the work, you get paid at the end of the week, and you're not really building anything. Now, I felt like I had a job, and I wanted my children to see me building a legacy and actually enjoy what I was doing. So that scarcity mindset to adopting an abundance mindset for me is probably the best thing, because now I don't see everything in black and white. I don't see everything as just earning money. Like Jake said, money's the result. Money's an opportunity. Profit's the fuel. It's not the destination. I always thought making the money was like the reason why we're doing business. That's only one part of it. There's so many other parts about whether it's creating impact, whether it's creating other opportunities. There's so much more to just being in business than what I thought of. And I think from we've been talking about mindset, I think my mindset has really changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years.
He was angry, Anthony, back in the day. Like when you see him at the restaurant, like I didn't even know him that well at first. He had this chef's coat on. He was standing in the back with his arms crossed. No, I mean, it was an upside down U. I mean, he was just frowning all the time. And it took a while to break through, man. I was like, damn, this guy's angry. He was like the mean guy in the streets. But
really? Bro, wouldn't you be angry if you got to go to work on Mondays when your restaurant's closed to make a few $100? You'd be angry too. You know what I'm saying? Like you're working at nighttime. You're not supposed to be there. And it's like, it gets frustrating after a while. You see what I'm saying, bro? It snowed this week. I'm not getting paid this week. You know what I'm saying? It's really difficult. It's hard. And you have that. You get
rent's still due when it snows is what Gino's saying.
Exactly, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my mom would say to me, it's okay. We're at least paying the bills. I'm not in the business to pay the bills. We're in business to make money. And that was like so frustrating when you hear these words and you constantly hear those messages. After a while, it's like, come on. And my mom is still stuck in that mindset. She's still stuck in like, oh, we have to be small. It's okay. It works for her. But you don't have to adopt someone else's mindset. We're built for greatness. We're not built here to live a mediocre life. That's what I believe. I think God has made us all unique. We all have unique talents and gifts, and it's our duty to find what talent and gift we have and lean into it.
Lean into it, man. I think you mentioned a word a moment ago. My brain like clicked in because I wanted to go in that place because all the things we're building, right? I think there's a certain point in time where like at this point, like I'm good. Like my wife and I have a great marriage, business is flowing, like everything's good. And I go, what's the next thing, right? And I go, part of it for me for sure is like legacy. My kids, my family, those that I get to interact with. And when you guys look at also the people I coach to create kind of what I have, same as you guys are doing. When you look at the education company, we look at what is kind of the legacy you guys looking to leave? Is it just like the name out there? Is it just the impact of the people you interact with? Is it family? Like when you guys think to the next 20 years from now, you will still be alive by then. What do you want to have put the groundwork in for?
For me, it's the family aspect and the relationship, because me and my wife have a podcast called The Jake and Gino Show, and it's really underserved. It's underutilized. Work with your spouse. Most people say, I can't work with my wife. I love working with my wife. I mean, that's another limiting belief that people don't understand. I love to have people understand what the value of money is. Money is just a tool. I love to have people understand that and teach that to their kids. The relationship that we have with our families. Family is the most important thing on this planet. The destruction that they've done over the family over the last 2 or 3 generations, you can see the results. It's not kids' fault. It's parents' fault. It's older people. So I want to be there to say, it's not easy. I've been married for 25 years. There's a lot of challenges, but I think we're a lot better off and we're committed for the long term. And having children is probably one of the most gratifying, amazing things that you can possibly have. And that's legacy. You're living your legacy through your children. You're teaching them your values. You're raising them. So as parents, I want fathers to take it back and become role models and become what men are supposed to do. They're supposed to lead the family and they're supposed to take care of their family.
I agree, man.
Dude, we were watching Rudolph last night. Oh, sorry. There's a little lag there, Anthony. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, we were watching the original Rudolph last night, and they're talking about getting the does back, because it wasn't safe outside anymore. And I was like, dude, you can't even say that shit anymore. It's like, all right, we're going to get the does back in the house because it's dangerous out here. And I was just thinking about it. And I looked over at my wife and smiled. We just started chuckling because the kids are seeing it, they're absorbing it, and it's fine or whatever. But nowadays it's like... It's
crazy. I bet we could have some pretty deep conversations and probably in pretty good alignment. My wife and I have some of those same conversations. We sit back and look at stuff, and it's just like you can't say it in public anymore because then God forbid, you're just some cancelable human. But
the men are protecting the women, and that's not okay anymore, right? That's fine for some folks, right?
So I'll give you guys a quick little story too. All right. Let me give you a quick little story. I got a 9-year-old daughter. Went for a walk with her the other day. I'm holding her hand. A butterfly comes towards us. Her instinct is to jump behind me. It's not to jump in front of me. It's to jump behind me. My instinct is to grab her hand and throw it behind me. The same day at nighttime, a dog is coming right at us. Her instinct is to jump behind me. That's the reality. We should be able to say that. We are different. We're very similar, men and women, but we have certain differences. And one difference that the man should have is to actually learn how to have a relationship with his daughters, because they're going to marry you. If you're an asshole, they're going to marry an asshole. If you're a loving, caring person who's there, who'll take a bullet for them, they're going to marry that person. Okay, that's the reality. So, I mean, it was really funny. She jokes about it all the time, my little 9-year-old. She's like, yep, Dad, remember the butterfly? That's their instinct. Their instinct is to actually be sheltered and be taken care of. And that's okay. We should be able to say that.
I agree, man. It's part of our family too. I mean, it's the core. That's what I think to my wife too. Is like at the end of the day, like this morning, we have an RV we're trying to sell, and so I had to get up before my work day, and I had to go take this thing somewhere in the freezing cold and ride a scooter back and move the cars. And she's like, "You don't got to do all that." Like, no, that's what I do. Like I'm not even mad at them. It's just what dads do. We do these things. We don't complain. And the 100%. Thing is, like, there's a nuance to it. And the same thing, my wife needs to have that peace of mind going. My husband's got that under control, right? Because I need her to be like the soft place for me to land on days. I need to be able to go chill at the house. And I think there is a part
of need that too.
They do. They need to have it, because that's also my sons need to see that so they understand what's expected. Because like you said, I don't want to have my son go into the world and be with some woman and do some dumb stuff and go like, you messed up a phenomenal woman because I missed something of raising you. And that's obviously not my fault completely. He's a grown person, but I have to exhibit that so they understand how to love a woman. My daughter needs to see it so she knows how she should be loved. Because you're right. They'll go after what they see. And I believe also, like, my daughter, I want to have a relationship with her so that she picks someone that she knows I'll respect, if that makes sense. If she respects me and we have a relationship there, like if you have a buddy, you're not going to bring a schmuck around your good friend, right? So there's a relationship there. If I have a relationship, my thought logically is like, she's not going to bring somebody around that's going to be work well, we'll butt heads. So hopefully she'll choose someone that I can respect, that has good character, good morals, treats her properly. I assume that would be the case. But yeah, if I'm a punk, like, she's going to bring someone home like that. That's what she knows. It's a family. It's a family dynamic.
If I could go back,
it'll go back.
Yeah, for sure. And because we're talking about why we're doing this stuff, and the reason I love the multifamily space is because day in and day out, I know I come to work working on our machine and creating a well-oiled machine. And the most interesting thing about that for myself and longevity is that people will always need a place to live. And so we're buying assets in places where there's jobs, people want to be, they're moving to. And so we're strategically buying these homes for people for future generations. We're also, building build-to-rent communities as well. And I hope that over time, they will go to my kids one way or another, right? If they want to be active in it or not. But creating that infrastructure and that well-oiled machine that gets to a point where it doesn't need me is the highest level of business success that also fuels my personal aspirations and goals. So that's what I love the most about what we're doing, because of the longevity and the long-term mindset that's associated with it.
Oh, beautiful, man. You remember MySpace? I know you do. You remember MySpace? I recently read something.
Of course I do.
Yeah. The guy, Tom, who made MySpace.
You said music when you log on. It was cool.
It was actually good. It was pretty cool kind of thing. I'm not gonna lie. But I think I read something where someone was like poking him, like, "Oh, your social media platform, like, it bombed." And he's like, "I made $30 million." He's like, and then he gets to do what he wants, which is he takes pictures. He's a photographer in the world, and there's a simplicity and a beauty to that. Like, he was able to create something that removed the need to have money to be able to, so he could just do what he wanted to do. And I kind of feel like that's what I'm trying to, but maybe you guys are trying, like, not that you don't want to do it. You love the game and getting in and doing your thing, but at some point, like,
no, I love doing deals, right? And that's the cool thing. So I can get that competitive fuel. And if I'm, whatever at a point in the future where I'm less involved in this aspect or that, but I'm still able to vet deals, be competitive, take down deals, and it's going to grow and continue to tinker on the machine. I'm like, shit, that's pretty damn good for me. Right?
I get it. Yeah. That's my dream for life. I'm in a different world, obviously, but at some point, I want to be the guy that sits back and watches people take the message to the world. Different people teaching my same stuff, same like your James Rohns and the Tony Robbins. Like, that's all doable. It's still in the same pocket. Just create my own kind of carved out niche. And because I think I'm the same as you, man. There's something about the excitement of like just doing things that get you to, like, the juices flowing. And I don't think that humans are supposed to not have that. In fact, I believe people genuinely who are doing dumb stuff, it's because they don't get the rocks off. There's no thrill anywhere. So they get the
There's
thrill
no purpose.
sleeping around and doing dumb stuff. And it's like, well, if you got that in something that was good, for me, it's speaking for you guys doing deals. Like if you got it in a good space, you don't seek it other places that damage your life. But I think humans need to have that. And if you remove that, you're dying quickly.
Well, Anthony, they don't have the clarity. That's the problem is they don't have somebody around them asking the questions like, what do you want to do? Most people know what they don't want to do. So if they know what they want to do and they know where they shine and they know where they want to leave their impact, then they can focus on that. But instead, the media, social media, whatever, we're all distracted. There's no one really focusing anymore. And if you could focus on where you want to bring your greatness, I know Jake likes to do deals. That's his thing. So, hey, focus on that. If you want to do podcasts, focus on that. If you want to build a business, just focus on that.
Yeah, I like it. Man, I think we've somehow hit time. You guys, it's good talking to you guys, man. I enjoy you. So here's a couple things as we kind of come to some concluding time. One, you have an education company. We're talking about these aspects of what you guys do. I'd love to hear more about like the actual company, how you guys help get into the same world you're in now.
Gino.
Jake.
Hit it.
Buy right, manage right, finance right. It's a process. I mean, I always told Jake early on, I didn't have the map when I went into the forest before him. And we all need a process or a framework. And that's what we've created. And you can use that process for anything. If you're buying a single family home, if you're buying a business, you need to know how to buy it. That's the first part. You need to know how to finance it. That's the second part. We know, and the manage right, we have a wheelbarrow. So those are the two back legs. The front leg is the manage right. How are you managing that asset? It's in constant motion. Understanding that, I mean, like I said, the students have done over 75,000 units. We have, in-person boot camps. We have coaching. We have weekly lessons. I'm going to be implementing a monthly mastermind call. So, Anthony, you've said accountability, that word a couple of times. And I think that's what really helps people. They need the coaching. They need the accountability. They need to be able to get on to say, hey, I learned how to underwrite a deal. Now, how do I implement this? Hey, I've got this broker script. How do I implement talking to a broker? Well, that's what the coaching's about. That's what the community's about. And then obviously, to me, the most important aspect is having that community, having people who you can talk to who don't think you're crazy because you're closing a 7-unit deal and need to raise $3 million. You go tell your firefighter friend that, they're going to think you're nuts. But if you're speaking to somebody in the community, like, that's cool, bro. How can I help you? That's where I think the difference is when you're starting an education company and really trying to build that community. It's all, to me, about community and accountability.
Yeah, and the really cool thing about our group is that a lot of these different mentorship groups out there for multifamily, will bring people in and actually raise money from their students. And, fortunately for us, we've got to the point where all our deals are funded internally. So we just buy our deals with our own cash. So we don't need to go out and raise money any longer. So we're not competing with our students. Who's going to raise money from this person? We're going to try and raise money for our students. It's results-based education. So you're coming in to learn, and our goal is your goal to get you into your first deal and get you multiple deals. That's why, Gino was able to say we've helped our students buy 75,000 units, results-based education. You can check us out at jakeandgino.com, jakeandgino.com.
Gino. Yes, I like it, man. It's awesome. And I think that's a cool thing too. I think it's also another part of joy of like passing it on. I got a speaking coaching company where I teach people to do what I do, speak, right? Speak, coach, teach, consult, and it's a whole other area. But it is a blast, man. I think at a certain point when you've had success, the next kind of thrill comes from seeing somebody else get it by applying what you've taught them. Like I love watching people like, I just had 4 speeches. Like, hell yeah. Like, I love it. I'm sure you guys like, I just closed a unit. Hell yeah. Like there's a different sense of like impact and fulfillment from doing it. You guys have already answered all the questions that I think have the base one. I have one final question. You guys can answer it separately if you'd like to, which I think you should, but here's the question. What promise did God or the creator make to the world when they created you?
Whew. Man, this guy's going to show up.
There you go. That's as simple as good, man. I get it.
Than I am.
To me, it's to be a role model to my kids and really to take care of my wife. That's what it comes down to take care of the family. And sort of to mirror what Jake said, I really want to put my effort into what I'm doing. I don't want to half-ass it. I've gotten too old to where practice makes progress, and I'm going to lean into whatever I have to do.
Mm-hmm. I dig it, man. I like it. Those are good things. I think for me, I'm saying like I'm a guy who just gets things done, man. I show up and I'll make a bunch of excuses the best I can. And yes, I do want to make sure that at the end, and I haven't always been this way, but at the end of the day, I want to be able to go into the world. And if I leave this world, when I do, my kids can at some point go, my dad was Anthony Trucks. People go, oh, he's a good guy. Like that for me is it. 300 years from now, no one's gonna know my name in 100 years, but if my kids know and they can pass that on and do something great, then I've done something cool. So I appreciate you guys. I like what you're doing. I'm gonna have to poke into you guys' world a little bit. I think it's time for me to kind of expand our areas of future investment, because I think it's something I've heard enough about. Where I'm like, I don't know, I'm just an idiot for not having stepped on the button to kind of move that thing forward. But appreciate you guys' time. Those of you guys who are still hanging out with us, thank you for hanging out. You could have been watching, I don't know, cat videos, but you chose to come spend some time with us. Go to jakeandgino.com. Find out things these guys do, because I'm telling you, I'm a person here telling you, I'm gonna go do this. You should go do this. Go check out. Find out what the future could look like for you. Because when you do get to that point of having this kind of new experience of life, you get to find things you didn't even know were out in the world. There's more you don't know. So find out more about what you don't know by going to jakeandgino.com. Outside of that, as always, make the most of your shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks, Jake and Gino signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.